Welcome to the lecture on the theories of love. This presentation explains a few popular theories of love proposed by psychologists and sociologists. An application of how to practice love is written in my article published on Lovesmitten.com. Love is generally regarded to be the deepest and most meaningful sentiments. Going back more than 2 millennia, the Greeks spoke of three types of love: eros, agape, and philia. While eros suggested romantic or erotic love, agape love indicated unselfish, altruistic, the God kind of love. And philia is the love that we experience for our family and close members. Throughout history, scholars from a variety of disciplines have speculated on the nature of love. For example, as early as 1886, there was a German physician and a pioneering sexologist, Richard von Krafft-Ebing, who identified 5 types of love: true love, sentimental love, platonic love, friendship, and sensual love. Several decades later, psychotherapist Albert Ellis proposed additional love varieties, like he suggested types and degrees of affection like conjugal love, parental love, familial love, religious love, love for humanity, love for animals, love for things, self-love, obsessive-compulsive love, etc. A religious theoretician, C.S. Lewis, devoted an entire book to a discussion of the types of love. He draws from an earlier distinction made by the Greek philosophers, and he proposed 4 main varieties. First, he talks about affection, which is based on the familiarity and repeated contact, which resembles the strong attachment which we see between parents and children. So this type of love is experienced for and by a variety of objects like family members, pets, acquaintances, lovers, etc. The second variety of love that Lewis depicted is friendship, which relates to philia. Common interests, insight, or taste coupled with cooperation, mutual respect, and understanding will form the core of this kind of love. Third, he spoke about eros, or that state which we call being in love. Unlike the other types of love, eros contains a mixture of sweetness and terror as well as a sexual component. Erotic love is also characterized by affection, idealization of, and preoccupation with the beloved, and also a shorter lifespan. And the fourth type of love that Lewis talks about is charity, a selfless and divine gift love that has no expectation of reward and desires, only what is simply best for the beloved. Thereon, a lot of contemporary social and behavioral scientists have proposed various taxonomies that explains the types and varieties of love. We'll be looking at 4 major common classification schemes. We'll be looking at Riggs-Zubin's theory, the labeling theory of love, John Lee's color wheel theory, and Robert Sternberg's triangular theory of love. Let's look at Riggs-Zubin's love versus liking theory. Now, his research was predicted on the assumption that love may be independently conceptualized and measured. He was in fact one of the first researchers to develop an instrument which was designed to empirically measure love. An initial assumption of his work is that love is an attitude held by a person toward a particular other person, which involves our predisposition to think, feel, and behave in certain ways towards that other person. He was one of the pioneers to differentiate between liking and loving. Rubin believed that sometimes we experience a great amount of appreciation and admiration for others. We enjoyed spending time with that person and we want to be around him or her. But this does not necessarily qualify as love. So he referred to this as liking. Love, on the other hand, is a much deeper, more intense, and includes a strong desire for physical intimacy and contact. People who are in like enjoy each other's company, but people who are in love care as much as the other person's need, as much as they care for their own needs. Social psychologist Zick Rubin proposed that this romantic love can be made up of 3 elements: attachment, caring, and intimacy. Attachment is the need to receive care and approval and physical contact with the other person, while caring involves valuing the other person's needs and happiness as much as your own. Intimacy refers to sharing of thoughts, desires, and feelings with the other person. In his research, Rubin identified a number of characteristics that distinguished between different degrees of romantic love. For example, he found in one of his experiments that participants who rated high on the love scale also spent a great deal more time gazing into each other's eyes as compared to those who only called it a week in love. Rubin's research has very clearly marked an important step forward in our understanding of romantic love and has certainly paved the path for future research on this very fascinating topic. This work can be better understood when we introduce another contemporary theory of love, and one that has produced a widely used measurement instrument is the typology developed by John Lee. And this is the color wheel model of love. In his 1973 book, The Colors of Love, psychologist John Lee compared different styles of love to the color wheel. His approach is very novel, wherein each variety of love is like a primary and a secondary color. Let's look at primary love styles. Now, just as there are 3 primary colors, Lee suggested that there are 3 primary styles of love. These 3 styles are Eros, Ludus, and Storge. Now, the term Eros comes from the Greek word which we saw earlier, meaning passionate or erotic. Lee suggested, that this type of love involves both physical and emotional passion. The most common symptom of Eros is an immediate and powerful attraction to the beloved individual. The erotic lover is turned on by a particular physical type. He's prone to fall instantly and completely in love with a stranger. This person can experience love at first sight, rapidly becomes preoccupied with pleasant thoughts about that individual, feels an intense need for contact with the beloved, and wishes that the relationship remains exclusive. Erotic love also has a strong sexual component. So to sum it, erotic lover is eager to get to know the beloved very quickly, intensely. Ludos comes from the Greek word meaning game. This form of love is conceived as playful and fun, but not necessarily serious. Those who exhibit this form of love are not ready for commitment and are very wary of so much of intimacy. The ludic lover has no intention of including the current partner in any future plans or events and worries about any signs of growing involvement, need, or intense attachment from the partner. As a quintessential commitment phobia, the ludic lover avoids seeing the partner too often, believes that the lies and deceptions are justified, and expects that the partner to remain in control of his or her emotions. In addition, such a lover tends to prefer a wide variety of physical types and sexual activities, and they see it as an opportunity for pleasure rather than an intense emotional bonding, which is very contrary to how an erotic lover sees it. The third kind of primary love style that John Lee speaks about is Storge, which comes from the Greek term meaning natural affection. In his book in 1973, Lee says that love without fear or folly is what Storge resembles. It's a concept of affection in that it is stable and it is based on a solid foundation of trust, respect, and friendship. This form of love is often represented by familial love between parents and children, between siblings and extended family members. This type of love can also develop out of friendship, where people who just share similar interests and commitments gradually develop affection for one another. A typical Storge lover will view and treat the partner as an old friend, does not experience very intense emotion or physical attraction to the partner, which was seen in an erotic love, but prefers to talk about and engage in shared interests with the partner rather than to express direct feelings. Such a lover is also shy about sex and tends to demonstrate his or her affection in non-sexual ways. To the Storgic lover, love is an extension of friendship, and it is a very important part of life, but it's not a valuable goal in itself. With these 3 primary love styles, the primary colors can be combined to form secondary colors. He says that there are 3 secondary love styles which contain features of the primary love styles. For example, the first one is Pragma. Pragma is a combination of Storge and Ludus, if you see in the picture that I have represented. Pragma is the kind of love that goes shopping for a suitable mate. The pragmatic lover has a practical outlook on love, seeks a compatible lover. They create a shopping list of the features or attributes that I desire in a partner, and we will select mate based on how well the individual fulfills my requirements. So the pragmatic love is essentially a very faster acting version of Storge, which has been quickened by the addition of Ludus. Mania is a combination of Eros and Ludus. This is the secondary love style. Manic lovers lack the self-confidence associated with eros and the emotional self-control associated with ludus. So this obsessive, jealous love style is characterized by self-defeating emotions, desperate attempts to force affection from the beloved, and the inability to believe or trust in any affection towards the loved ones. The manic lover is desperate to fall in love and to be loved, begins immediately to imagine a future with the partner, wants to see the partner daily, tries to force the partner to show love and commitment, distrusts the partner's sincerity, and is very possessive. This love type is usually seen as irrational, extremely jealous, obsessive, and often unhappy, as reported by Lee in 1973. The last secondary color of love is agape. Agape, if you see in the picture, is a combination of eros and storge. Agape is similar to the Lewis's concept of charity. It represents an all-giving, selfless love style that implies an obligation to love and care for the other without an expectation of reciprocity or reward. This love style is universalistic in the sense that a typical agapic lover believes that everyone is worthy of love and that loving others is a duty of a mature person. With respect to personal love relationships, this agapic lover will be unselfishly devoting himself or herself to the partner. They will even step aside in favor of a rival who seems more likely to meet the partner's needs. Although John Lee believed that many lovers respect and strive to attain this agapic ideal, he also believes that the give and take that characterizes most romantic relationships precludes the occurrence of a purely altruistic love. John Lee's classification scheme, as explained, inspired the development of several measurement instruments. The most popular, well-known, common one is a 42 items LAS scale, which is Love Attitude Scale, which was devised by Hendricks and his colleagues based on the John Lee's model. A third model that we're going to look at is the labeling theory of love. According to psychologist Elaine Hatfield and her colleagues, there are two basic types of love: companionate love and passionate love. Companionate love is characterized by mutual respect, attachment, affection, and trust. It usually develops out of feelings for mutual understanding and a shared respect for one another. In fact, in her later articles, Ellen Burscheid, one of her colleagues, later distinguishes between companionate and compassionate love as well. The second is passionate love, which is characterized by intense emotion, sexual attraction, anxiety, and affection. When these intense emotions are reciprocated, people feel elated and fulfilled. Unreciprocated love leads to feelings of despondency and despair. Hatfield suggested that passionate love is transitory, usually lasts between about 6 to 30 months. Now, Elaine Hatfield and Ellen Burscheid's labeling theory of love explains what fuels passionate love. Here's the interesting part. According to them, individuals experience romantic love when two events occur together. 1. Intense physiological arousal, and 2. Situational cues that indicate that love is an appropriate label for the feelings that I'm experiencing right now. So there has to be an intense physiological arousal and a situational cue that tells me, this is love. So the physical arousal or physiological arousal can be produced by either a sexual arousal, it can be an excitement, sometimes it can also be a negative emotion such as jealousy. Now, in this physiological arousal, if we subsequently label this as, I must be feeling in love, or he really turns me on, such an experience is what we call passionate love. This theory really helps us explain why sometimes people can feel deep love even in the face of rejection or hurt. Suppose a negative emotion produces a strong physiological arousal and they choose to interpret this arousal as love. Then people may decide that they may be falling even more in love even when they experienced negative emotions. Now, why is it that people feel that label this feeling as love and not the other alternative explanations? The reason is priming. Especially in the Western cultures, romantic love is seen as a very possible, accepted and desirable state. The virtues of passion are extolled in songs and commercials and TV shows and films. So young adults are primed and ready to experience this love in their lives, and therefore they may be making the mistake of attributing or labeling this negative emotion also as love. However, this is not across all cultures. In many cultures, passionate romantic love is a very foreign concept. In fact, even in our own cultures, marriages are seen as arranged on the basis of economic and status consideration. Now, recently, in fact, in the Western cultures, the concept of romantic love is also recently invested by during the Middle Ages, when social philosophers suggested that love should be a requirement for marriage and not just economic and status consideration. We are also moving into that phenomenon now. The most interesting theories of love that have been put forth is Robert Sternberg's triangular theory of love. Now, he proposes a duplex theory of love, which initially were two separate theories: the triangular theory of love and the theory of love as a story. Let me teach you the triangular theory of love first. Sternberg conceptualized love in terms of three basic components, and he kind of puts them on the vertices of a triangle. The three components are intimacy, passion, and decision. Note that this triangle is used as a metaphor and not a very strict geometrical model, okay? Intimacy is primarily the emotional or affective nature, which involves feelings of warmth and closeness and connection and bonding in the love relationship. The other vertex is the passion component, which is motivational. It consists of the drives that are involved in romantic and physical attraction, the sexual consummation, and related phenomena. The third component is decision or commitment, which is largely cognitive by nature. It represents both short-term decision, which one takes to love the other one, and a long-term commitment to maintain that love. Now, according to Sternberg, these three love components will differ with respect to a number of properties: the stability of these components, the conscious control of these components, and the experiential salience or significance of these components. These three basic components of love combine to produce 8 different types of love, and as I go on explaining them, I'm encouraging you to see what kind of love is expressed in which part of your life. Let's look at when none of these three components are available, and that's the non-love. It describes a casual interaction that is characterized by the absence of all the three love components. Most of our personal relationships, which are casual associations, can be defined as non-love. Now, when in a relationship there is intimacy only, we call that liking, which are essentially friendships. They contain warmth, closeness, and other positive emotional experiences, but they don't have passion and commitment. Friendships are typically based on shared interests or activities. A friendship that lasts is typically a relationship in which there is a mutual benefit occurring to both the people in the interaction. So notice there are two components here: shared interest and mutual benefit to both. And either of these two components starts breaking down, the friendship, typically starts weakening and disappear. Now, I wanted to highlight that friendship is a very central aspect to a good marriage or a good long-term relationship, and the application lies in the fact that if there is a relationship characterized by genuine friendship, there would be shared interest and mutual benefit. In the absence of a genuine shared interest and mutual benefit, the initial rosy glow in a relationship will not be enough to create or sustain a long-term marriage. The third is when there is only passion. We call that infatuation. It is an intense love at first sight experience which is characterized by an extreme attraction and arousal, and there is absence of any real intimacy or decision commitment. One can feel the passion for a fictional character also in a book. You can feel passion for a movie star that you would never meet. You can feel passion for an already married person who's not available. You can feel passion for a picture in a magazine. It's changeable, emotions. It's a human response which is defined by changeability. So when one feels passion for an actual person who betrays them and abuses them and neglects them and ignores them, the shift from passion goes to the opposite, which is hatred, and that is just a matter of time. So when there is presence of only intimacy, it's called liking. When there is presence of passion alone, it is infatuation. When there is only decision or commitment, we call that empty love. Robert Sternberg says that in empty love, partners are committed to each other and the relationship, but they don't have an intimate emotional connection or the passionate attraction. This kind of love is often seen in many marriages as well as at the end of long-term relationships, or sometimes in the beginning of an arranged marriage as well. Now let's look at dyad combinations of two of the three components and how our understanding expands further. Now let's see if there is a love that has intimacy and passion alone. He called that romantic love. There are feelings of closeness and connection coupled with strong physical attraction. We have what makes the world goes around. We have a dyad that moves beyond passion to a relationship, and if this relationship continues, it will probably grow into commitment, perhaps. In the absence of commitment, there will be annoyances that creep into a relationship which will have the power to cause discomfort and eventually weaken or end the bond. This is probably at least one of the reasons that cohabitation researchers are revealing such extreme results. This commitment which is missing in this romantic love is what allows the weathering of many annoyances and irritations that occur in long-term relationships and marriages. Let's see if I add in with intimacy, commitment or decision. Robert Sternberg calls that companionate love. So there is intimacy, a long-term, stable, committed friendship which is characterized by high amount of emotional intimacy. There is a decision to love the partner, and there is a commitment to remain in the relationship. This type of love is often seen in best friendships where there is non-sexual, and also it is seen in long-term marriages when sexual attraction has faded away. There's nothing particularly wrong with such a relationship. It is a characteristic of many older couples who have been married to the same partner for a very long time. They enjoy the relationship, they're tolerant of each other's flaws, but the sex and passion are typically rare or absent. But if for a particular couple, sex and passion are important to their definition of a successful relationship, this companionate love may be feeling a little incomplete. There are couples who will experience decision and commitment with passion, but no intimacy, and Robert Sternberg calls that factious love. Now, they base their commitment to each other on passion rather than intimacy. This is a whirlwind relationship which is typically unstable, and it is at a risk for termination. Now let's look at this Webster's dictionary of the word fatuous. It's foolish, it's more at battle, and it's inanely foolish. The idea of a relation which combines passion, that is the erotic component of love, with commitment is in the absence of friendship is unusual. Take a closer look, however, which reveals millions of such marriages. There is an abusive spouse syndrome, which is an example of fatuous love. They don't like each other as well. They don't have many shared interests, but they may have great sexual chemistry. And so a sad pattern emerges. One beats up the other. Sometime later the remorse sets in. They apologize and they make love. Things remain calm for a bit, but soon the arguments escalate to violence again. And then there is remorse, and then there is a love-making session, and then the calm, and then an escalating argument. Move beyond the more severe cases of actual abuse and consider two married people who share very little in common. They don't like each other, but they remain in a marriage because of a religious scruple or for the kids. So there can be an absence of physical violence, and you can still be in this relationship for a long term filled with fights or deadly silence, but you may have passionate lovemaking sessions from time to time due to the sexual tension or the curious phenomena of sexual attraction in the absence of liking. In majority of such cases, passion eventually dies. A powerful combination of intimacy, passion, and decision and commitment is what Sternberg calls the consummate love, which results from a combination of all these three components. This type of love, Sternberg says, is complete love, where individuals strive to attain, particularly in their romantic relationships. There is a fire of passion, the warmth and pleasure of intimate friendship, and the strength of commitment. What such an analysis does is moves love and romance beyond a mysterious but an indefinable phenomenon to an understanding of the components that makes for a successful relationships. Now, because the three of these basic components of love occur in varying degrees within a relationship, most love relationships will not fit cleanly into one particular category, but it may reflect some combination of categories from time to time. And must remember, duration of a relationship also plays a role. While passion will peak in the initial period of any relationship, intimacy will gradually pick up speed and will sustain. Commitment is the factor which will show a steady gradual growth and which will witness a plateau over the course of a relationship. Sternberg's triangular theory of love combines dynamism and the complexity of love, which embraces a very evolving quality of love. So as people and relations change, their love also changes. What I also like about Sternberg's theory is an important aspect, which is the geometry of this love triangle, which depends on two factors: the triangle itself, which is the amount of love, and the balance of love. Now notice this: if there are different amounts of love represented in the triangle, you will see different areas of triangle. So the greater amount of love, the greater area of the triangle. If there is a difference in the balance of the three components of love, you will see different shapes of love. So a balanced love which has all three equal components will probably be seen in an equilateral triangle. Sternberg extends it to say that love does not involve only a single triangle. There will be great number of triangles, only that some which are major theoretical and some are of practical interest. For example, it is possible to contrast a real versus an ideal triangle. One not only has a triangle which represents his or her love for each other, but you can also have a triangle which represents an ideal other for that relationship. So it is also important to distinguish between the real existing triangle and my ideal triangle of love. You can also distinguish between the triangle of a feeling and the triangle of an action in the relationship. Sternberg's other part of the theory also talks about theory of love as a story, and I like this because love triangles emanate from stories. Almost all of us are exposed to large number of diverse stories that convey different conceptions of how love can be understood. Some of these stories may be explicitly intended as love stories, and some of them has love stories embedded in the larger context of stories. See, either way, we are provided with varied opportunities to observe multiple conceptions of what love can be. These stories may be observed by watching people in relationships. You can see them in the media. You can see them by reading fiction. It seems plausible that as a result of our exposure to such theories, we can over time form our own stories of what love is really and what it should really be. I'm also looking at various potential partners that fit our stories to greater or lesser degrees. We are more likely to succeed in a close relationship with people whose stories are more or like the ones that match our stories of love. So although fundamentally the stories we created are our own, they draw on from the experiences of the living world, or the fairy stories that we may have heard when we were young, or from the models of love relationships that we observe around us in our parents and relatives, from the television, the media, and etc. I'm adding an additional understanding about love languages because I found that amazing. In Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages, the picture is on the slide. One of the most useful relationship books in print is this book. He suggests that we speak different languages when expressing love to someone. The basis of the book idea is that there is a great deal of marital discord because we attempt to express love to our partner, but we find ourselves speaking a different language than our spouse understands. In this context, great efforts to express love may not be received or appreciated by our partner. It is one of my absolutely favorite books, and I recommend it. But remember, if you put these principles into place in your real dating relationships, you'll be much ready and more able to use them when you get into a committed relationships. The 5 love languages are words of affirmation. For many, words of encouragement, expression of gratitude, and heartfelt compliment can go a very long way to make them feel loved. Some of us, experience quality time as our love language. So, although passive time together is important, but when we engage in quality conversations around romantic getaways, I feel loved that way. For some of us, receiving gifts can be an important love language. Practically, many cultures use gift giving as an important way of expressing love. But for some people, those gifts can be very meaningful. Fourth is an act of service. Some people love it when you clean the house for them, when you help them cooking meals, when you help them take garbage out, wash the car, fix the toilet, change the diapers, help with their assignments, etc. They may feel very valued when they are helped in their act of service. It is rare for an individual for whom physical touch is not an important part of nurturing an excellent relationship, but for some people, physical touch can be their language. Over time, it covers an entire spectrum from, pinky fingers to a sexual intimacy. There's a huge variation from person to person on which type of touch communicates love the most effective way. It can be frequent embraces, rubbing shoulders, running fingers through their hair, or playing footsies under the table, or nesting in front of a cozy fire, or a wide variety of sexual activities. Now, these are some of the theoretical explanations that I've been able to put together. If you want a deeper understanding of the practical applications of love, you can read my article on lovesmitten.com, which is titled Lockdown Wala Love. The article link is provided in the introduction caption of this video, because this is a collaborative effort between the two platforms. If you've got queries, suggestions and requests, my links are provided and you can feel free to write into me. Keep loving.